Today on Tricro Studios, we do a high gain amp head shootout between the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier 3-channel 100 watt, so not the multi-watt, and the Crate Blue Voodoo BV120H. So very quickly, if you want to hear metal videos with each specific amp individually, take a look in the description down below. I will leave some links to videos that I've done with them. And as well, the signal chain is going to be listed there, so that signal chain should answer a lot of the questions that you may have. I've got 2 sound samples today, and I made the personal decision, just as I did with the Valve King versus dual rectifier video, to use an Ibanez TS9 tube screamer with the boost kind of settings there. Neither of these amps really require them. However, it does give it a little more saturation, and even at higher volumes, like this is a higher volume comparison, it gives a little more control with the low end on both amps. So the first sound sample is a more kind of balanced frequencies, with the exception of the dual rectifier with the low end down, the bass down a little bit, and the Blue Voodoo with the bass up a little bit to kind of match a little. And then the second sound sample is both of them in a scooped setting. Alright, there you go. There are the two sound samples between the Mesa Boogie 3-channel 100 watts, so again, not the multi-watt, dual rectifier, and the Crate Blue Voodoo BV120H. Now, the Blue Voodoo here is actually the second, I believe it's the second incarnation. So the first one, the one that everyone called the Blue Doo-Doo, had like different colors of blue, and the logo that was on it kind of that kind of helped with the doo-doo nickname. Also, voodoo rhymes with doo-doo. Okay, so this part of the video I like to kind of go over some like reactions, what I learned and what I gained from doing this shootout here. The first thing I want to talk about is the Crate Blue Voodoo. I don't think it particularly did horrible or anything like that, or bad in this shootout. It's definitely a different sound. You have to be very careful with the presence, and you have to be very careful with the high end, and as well with the low end. In order to like try and match the dual rectifier and to not make it sound very thin in comparison, you have to turn up the bass. So with that, you have to be very, very careful when you do that, because you can kind of make it sound like it's brick walling, and that's something that you don't really want to do. Now, in the first setting, or the first sound sample, the first riff that I did, I ended up turning down the dual rectifier ever so slightly because it was sort of brick walling, but while I was recording it sounded really, really good. But I knew that it was going to have that little bit of a little bit too much volume, so I did turn it down a hair. But yeah, in comparison, it's a tricky amp to compare it to a dual rectifier. It's not a bad amp. It's not a really, really good amp or anything like that. But it's one of those ones where people are like, wow, that amp's just horrible. It sucks. It's like, how bad is that amp, you know, when you pick it up and stuff like that. And you play it, and as long as you're not playing at bedroom volumes, that's usually where most people think it's a really bad amp. As long as you're not playing at bedroom volumes and you're getting the walls shaking a little bit, that's when that amp really opens up and it starts to sound really good. And then you compare it to another amp that has a very specific sound. Some people love it, some people hate it, but the dual rectifier has that specific sound, and so when you're comparing it, it's a little tough to do so, and it's very easy to actually have it come out sounding thin. Or, you know, muddying up the distortion, even though the gain setting I have here, there's a lot of gain to the Blue Voodoo, so I very rarely actually bring it higher than like 10 o'clock. I usually have it between like 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock for those settings. Another thing that I noticed, the Blue Voodoo did pretty well in the first sound sample with the like more balanced frequencies, but in the instance of using a scoop setting, I think you'd really, really benefit from using like an EQ pedal or a separate EQ, because it came out sounding mid-boxy, if that sounds right to you, or if that makes any sense. Even though the mids were scooped, it sounded boxy to me, like a Marshall that hasn't been dialed in properly, if that makes any sense to you. Like a Marshall with too much gain and improper frequencies, I guess you would say, even though there's no real improper frequencies, because it's all to taste. But anyway, that's really all I have to say. Both of these amps are great amps. I own both of these amps. I don't care if one person likes one over the other. I don't care. Both of these serve their purposes. I don't use the dual rectifier a lot anymore, but it is one of those amps that, like, I've always had a love-hate with it, but it is one of those amps where if I'm missing something, I'll try it, if that makes sense. So you know what I mean? Like, you're playing something, like the sound isn't right. That's one amp that I'll go, you know what, that's probably the first one that I'm going to grab the dual rectifier, see what it does. And usually that's going to fill the void that's missing in that sound. The Crate Blue Voodoo, I just got it, so I got, like, what, 2-3 weeks ago or something like that, and, you know, I've put it through its paces, but I think I need a little more time before that's just a little more than, you know, I'm stuck in a certain sound, let me try a different amp kind of a thing. Anyway, I've talked way too much already. Thanks for watching. I've been Ryan from Track Row Studios, and I say good day.